In the near future, Earth is on the verge of environmental collapse. The UN holds an emergency meeting to discuss the lack of food and water. Their solution is a population reduction plan, which means all international borders will be closed and each country will have a year to reduce its population by 20%. The government then starts offering money to families of people who volunteer for euthanasia. Citizens have to go outside using umbrellas that protect them from harmful UV rays and get water from the trucks sent by DOCS or Department of Citizen Strategy. Their agents use full body suits for protection and visit the volunteers' houses to pick up bodies. Downtown, there are dozens of signs asking people to join the reduction plan, calling it an opportunity. Two movers see the signs and throw their coffees at them. Moments later, the movers are delivering a piano to the fancy house of retired news anchor Charles. On TV, Charles's son Jared is giving his opinion on the reduction as an anthropologist working for the government. He's in favor of it and even thinks minors should be able to volunteer because they're way behind the pledge, even mentioning his 10-year-old son. The movers call out his hypocrisy because Jared hasn't volunteered and Charles agrees since he doesn't think highly of his son. Afterwards, Charles drops all his alcohol in the sink while his second wife Dawn tries to cook. However, she is on the verge of a breakdown and Charles has to comfort her. On TV, he learns that York Therapeutics is on trial for a lawsuit and they show his daughter Rachel, who is the company's CEO and therefore being blamed for most of the issues. When Jared comes home, he gets a call from his angry ex-wife. She's furious about his appearance on TV because it sounded like he'd be okay with his son volunteering, which has made the boy cry all day. Jared insists the interviewer twisted his point and wants to talk to his child, but his wife hangs up. When he goes inside, Jared scolds Dawn for using banned ingredients to make the meal. Upstairs, Charles is removing the protective sheet from the window. Soon Rachel arrives with her daughter Mia, which upsets Charles because he only wanted adults for dinner today. But he has to let Mia stay because Rachel threatens to leave. Outside, Charles's adopted son Noah hesitates to come in and has to call his girlfriend Grace for support. He almost has a panic attack, and Grace guides him with kind words to calm him down. At that moment, Charles's last child, Ashley, arrives and invites Noah into her car. He tells her about Grace, explaining he met her at a recovery meeting and that she's been clean for a long time, but asks her to keep the secret. When the siblings enter the house, Charles hugs Noah, which surprises the others. Before dinner, Charles makes a toast apologizing for missing so much time with his family because of his work. After dessert, Charles finally reveals why he called all his children. He and Dawn have volunteered for euthanasia. Rachel gets angry for not getting a heads up, so she could have left Mia at home and sends the girl to watch TV. Jared doesn't understand why his father is doing this since he doesn't need the money, so Charles tells him about all the natural disasters he covered on his news broadcast through the years. He watched how humans slowly destroyed Earth and made it worse by having 4 children. Charles is also worried that one of the kids could get drafted, so if he and Dawn volunteer, then the family is safe from future enlistment. While freaking out, Jared explains that the legislation only permits 1 person per family. So if one of the kids is called, Charles can take their place, but Jared doesn't think it'll happen because these laws usually don't go after rich people. Charles refuses to change his mind and Dawn agrees with him. She's a famous chef and thinks that with both of them being public figures, they're setting a good example. Ashley accuses her father of doing this for his own reputation and to elevate York's name because he doesn't think any of his kids achieved anything. Noah loses his mind and goes on a rant, hitting the table with his cane. When Dawn scolds him, he walks away. On TV, the news show protests outside DOCS headquarters asking the government for transparency, since they deny it's a military organization yet they behave like one. The ad break shows pictures of people who enlisted as heroes. Noah tries telling Charles that the government is faking the numbers. He thinks they've already met the 20% pledge, but they continue to enlist people to eliminate certain parts of the population. Poor people are doing it for the money, and undocumented immigrants are doing it to get citizenship for their kids. Jared thinks all this is a conspiracy theory, but Charles reminds him he can't trust his word because Jared defends the same administration that denied that climate change was real. Charles also reminds him that the government blames everything on Asian countries, and it's caused a hateful rhetoric that ended with Dawn's restaurant being burned down by bigots. When Charles calls Jared a disappointment, Jared mentions that Noah is a former addict to make himself look better. Ashley defends her brother by mentioning he's clean now, and that he's got a girlfriend whom he met during the meetings. Charles is a bit wary to hear he's dating another addict, but he becomes supportive when Noah explains Grace is clean too and shows him a picture. Meanwhile, Mia is on social media and finds posts doing awful edits of her mother. Then Charles goes to the kitchen to help Dawn, but comes back with a note. It turns out she left because she doesn't want to enlist anymore. To make matters worse, the DOCS agents are already here because Charles planned for the dinner to be his goodbye. Charles lets Agent Bob in and explains that Dawn isn't around, so he'd like to reschedule. Bob asks Charles to talk in private, and they go to the office, where Charles is given some paperwork to sign. However, these cancellation documents would freeze the family's assets, publicly classify Charles as a traitor, and send him to jail, so he refuses to sign them. Seeing no other choice, Charles agrees to do the euthanasia now. He gets in bed and most of his kids gather around him, but Noah stays downstairs playing the piano. Charles apologizes for being hard on his kids and promises the estate will be divided equally. Bob first injects him with an anesthetic to put him to sleep, then he injects the chemical to kill him without Charles feeling anything. After the body is taken to the bus, Bob announces he needs a second body as promised. Noah tries to kick him out, so Bob calls his fellow agents, who come in with weapons. He then gives them 2 hours to decide who will take Dawn's place. Jared wants to call his contacts in the government, but the agents have scrambled the house, which means no phone or internet connection is working. Bob also explains that Mia is exempt because they don't get paid for minors. It turns out they sell the bodies to private companies, and Bob used to be a correctional officer, but prisons are empty nowadays because criminals were the first to be eliminated. When Bob tries to take Mia away, Noah tries to defend her, and an agent quickly knocks him down. Then the agents take Mia to the bus, explaining they won't hurt her, and she just needs to be far from the conversation. Bob tells the family that agents are already looking for Dawn, but the chances of finding her in 2 hours are pretty low, and he doesn't want to fall behind his quota. He also shares the contents of the contract, pointing out that Charles let him do it just to protect his reputation. Jared tries to tell Bob that he knows some important people, but Bob doesn't care and asks everyone to think about their lives because surely one of them isn't doing well. Then Bob reveals that DOCS collects people's information from their internet history to their emails, so he starts reading their profiles. Jared abandoned his wife for a very young woman, but she's cheating on him every week. His son wants him to enlist, so he'll never see him again. Mia's being harassed because of her mother's problems, and Rachel's board wants to fire her from her own company. She's also wanted for some bank robberies. Before Bob can say more, Rachel punches him. Bob leaves their profiles on a table and asks them to find him outside when they reach a decision. If they don't, the agents will pick for them. Bob leaves and plays cards with Mia on the bus. Ashley checks her father's email and is disturbed to find a certain message. Then she reads her profile and discovers that all the casting directors she met consider her a bad actress, which makes her freak out. The others are reading their profiles too, and Jared tries to put himself together with some slapping. Afterwards, the siblings gather, and Jared says Noah should do it because their parents gave him a huge opportunity by adopting him, but he wasted it by becoming an addict and accidentally killing a woman. Ashley defends Noah and says Jared should be the sacrifice, implying his ex-wife would agree. An argument ensues and quickly escalates into pushing, so Noah yells at them to make them stop. Then he reveals he came today to apologize for all the trouble he brought to the family in the past, but now he's clean and in love, so he has hopes for the future. After Rachel does some yelling too, they call Bob to ask him some questions. He explains that if they let him choose, he'll make them draw straws. Rachel asks if any body works, or it has to be one that was injected by him, so Bob answers that by this point he'll take any body. Then Bob returns to the bus and discovers that Mia destroyed his cards. In the house, Rachel says she barely knows her siblings. They never call each other and only meet for the holidays when Charles invites them. Then she tries to stab Noah with a kitchen knife, but he defends himself and only gets a cut on his chest while Rachel hurts her arm. She goes on a rant on how Noah will waste the money on illegal substances, and Jared instantly agrees with her. Ashley at first doesn't, but she changes her mind when Rachel points out that the money would help her with her career. As Ashley kicks the knife back to her sister, she reveals that Noah won't go to trial because the family of the woman he killed dropped the charges. The email on their dad's computer proves that Charles paid them off with a huge amount of money, so Ashley thinks this counts as Noah already getting his part of the inheritance. Noah swears he didn't know and tells his siblings that they can have the money, but Jared grabs a fire poker and Ashley gets some pepper spray. They try to surround Noah, but they're hesitant to kill, and he easily knocks them all down. He runs into another room, and when Jared tries coming for him, Noah hits him with his father's trophy. Ashley sprays Noah's eyes and jumps on him, but Noah hits her on a wall before throwing her at Rachel. As he runs away, Rachel throws the knife to stab him in the back. In the bus, Bob is stapling the cards to fix them while mocking Mia for being a test tube baby, saying her mother couldn't get a man. Mia pretends she needs to relieve herself and goes to the bathroom to cry. At that moment, Bob is informed on the radio that Dawn was captured and the body should be there soon. However, Bob tells his coworker to take the body directly to headquarters. When Mia comes out, she says she wants to check on her mom, but Bob keeps her inside, saying that in his experience, people are killing each other by now. He also says that Rachel knew her company's medicine was killing people and did nothing. A furious Mia yells at him and tries to escape, but the guard keeps the door closed. Bob throws a tantrum when Mia doesn't take his argument about saving Earth seriously, and she concludes he only likes watching people die. Back to Noah, he's in the bathroom removing the knife and a loose tooth. He almost has a panic attack and thinks about Grace's voice to calm himself down. When he writes her a sweet goodbye text, he remembers he has no signal and throws the phone out the window. It lands in the backyard and the text is delivered. Then Noah breaks the piano stool and takes a leg as a weapon. In the kitchen, he notices some blood stains before grabbing dishes and an apron to make some improvised armor. When he goes upstairs, he finds Ashley, who apologizes and explains Rachel got in her head. She agrees to work with him, and they go to the living room, where she points at a picture of them as kids. Noah pauses to reminisce, and Rachel uses the distraction to stab his hand into the frame. Jared also tries to attack, but Noah hits him in the face to knock him down. After Noah hits Rachel too, he asks Ashley for help, only for her to run away. It takes some effort, but Noah manages to remove the ice pick from his hand and runs to hide in another room. When Jared comes after him, Noah throws a bat at his face. Rachel also comes and fails to pierce his makeshift armor, so Noah uses the chance to stab her in the neck. Jared appears again with a knife, but starts rambling about him doing this for Earth and not because he's a bigot, leaving an opening for Noah to hit him with a bat again. However, this means Noah doesn't see Ashley behind him, and she gets to knock him out. Then the three siblings tie Noah up with cables and agree to stab him at the same time, but they freeze when they hear someone outside honking the horn and calling for Noah. The trio rushes outside and finds the DOCS agents aiming their guns at Grace, who is recording everything with her phone. Mia tries to open the door and the guard pushes her back, so she starts the bus instead as a distraction. Now she manages to come out, only to get captured and sent back inside. Grace keeps asking about Noah, so Jared tells her he's alive, but they need assistance. When Grace tries to run away to get help, the agents shoot her down. Rachel thinks this is the second body and it should be over, but Bob says he needs two bodies from the same family and Grace died because they couldn't make a choice, so he gives them 15 minutes to end this business. The siblings go back inside ready to kill Noah, but they only find the cables. The power suddenly goes out in the house, and the trio grabs whatever they can find to protect themselves. Ashley opens a door, and Noah comes out with a knife to stab her. Then he quickly knocks down Jared and fights Rachel, stabbing her cheek. Noticing that Ashley is still moving, Noah grabs her by the neck to choke her. Rachel keeps asking him for mercy, so Noah drops Ashley and grabs her instead, poking at her cheek wound for extra pain. A desperate Rachel asks him to spare Ashley and let her do the procedure instead, pointing out she's the worst sibling in the group. Jared cuts in saying it should be him because he's the eldest and supposed to look out for the others. Then Ashley says they have kids to protect, so it should be her, only for Noah to shut them all up by throwing a bottle at the wall. He announces that instead of volunteering, they should kill Bob. First, the siblings seal Ashley's stab wound with a hot spoon, and she passes out. In the bus, Mia asks Bob to let her say goodbye to her family, but he refuses. When time runs out, he enters the house with another agent and finds Ashley unconscious on the floor. While Bob makes sure the other three aren't armed, Ashley stops pretending and stabs the other agent in the leg. The siblings rush to get the weapons they hid in a plant and take Bob and his partner hostage, so when more guards come inside, they can't shoot. Jared takes their weapons and the guards fall to their knees, but at that moment Ashley passes out for real. Bob uses the distraction to hit Noah, and Jared hits him in return. When Bob wakes up, he discovers all his men are tied up and Ashley's body is covered by a blanket. Bob tells the siblings that if anything happens to a DOCS official, the government will take Mia and Jared's son away. Since the siblings point out they're going to jail anyway, Bob offers a deal. He'll take Ashley's body and not press charges. However, the body under the blanket is actually an agent that the siblings killed when they did the procedure poorly. Getting desperate, Bob tells them they have Dawn at headquarters, and a furious Noah starts choking him, but Jared stops him. When the siblings get the needles ready to euthanize, Bob begs for a deal. Sometime later, Noah plays the piano in his very own concert. Dawn and his siblings are there with their kids watching him. On TV, Bob appears in an ad full of propaganda saying that Grace and Ashley died because they volunteered.